Welcome back to the Domestique Hotseat Podcast, the podcast where we bring to you riders from the pro peloton to give you some insight into their experiences. And man, today we have a fantastic interview for you with none other than Niamh Fisher-Black, one of the GC leaders for the lidl-trek team. She's got a depth of experience for someone so young, coming off working with SD Worx with the likes of Demi Vollering. And this is a fantastic chat. We get into Worlds, we get into the Tour de France, we get into under 23 riding, and we also get into what she thought about being in SD Worx during that infamous now 2024 Tour de France. So strap yourselves in, and I hope you enjoy this interview. And hey, if you do and you think, I actually would like really not to miss those in the future, just make sure you hit subscribe on whatever you're listening to so that you can do that. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and without further ado, here's Niamh Fisher-Black. Okay, I want to start off, Niamh. I'm a school teacher, and we were studying a book, and that book is called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and it has a lady in it, and her name is spelled Siobhan, and so I was pronouncing it phonetically, Siobhan, and I had a student sheepishly put their hand up about halfway through the book and say, I think it's pronounced Siobhan. You've got a name a little bit like that. So we have Niamh Fisher-Black, not Niamh Fisher-Black. First off, where does the name come from? Because Finn's got quite is there an Irish background there?
Yeah. No Irish background, but yeah, Finn has also got Irish name. My older sister's also got Irish name, so my mum obviously had a Irish baby name book or something.
Well, I've also got an Irish name. I think mine comes from the fact that my mum had a crush on Aidan Quinn, who is apparently in like a 1980s version of Frankenstein, I want to say. So, yeah, maybe there was an Irish thing going around. Anyway, how are you, Niamh?
Yeah, pretty good. I just did my last race, so kicking into off season now. Yeah,
and you didn't suck at it either. I've got you 9th place.
Yeah, it was a pretty hard race actually. Like a really classic style race in Vallieres, but I was hoping for a bit more in some parts of the race. Like there was some good moves with just Demi, Longo, and I, but they never stayed away. So 19th finish it was for me.
Just having a look at the order, Elisa Longo Borghini first, Demi Vollering second, Naomi Rug third. These are proper, and you got one over Magdalene though. That must have been nice to get the one up on the world champ.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Hey, we're going to start off with the quickfire questions. Essentially, if you've watched your brother, I'm collecting the Fisher-Black trading cards, and so you're the second. The quickfire questions basically ask you a series of questions. You've got a minute to answer them as quickly as possible. Our leader is Sarah Gigante at the moment, and unless you want her to flog you up the climb, she was very passionate about getting that top spot. So I think she's 13. I think tactically you should aim for no better than 12, because I feel like she would come back with a vengeance. But we'll see how you go. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So best New Zealand snack.
The Pix peanut butter slugs.
Okay, peanut butter slugs. What's your catchphrase?
Don't try, just do.
Okay. What's your least favourite nickname?
Navy.
These are hard. What's the best dinosaur?
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Beautiful. Your first car?
A Toyota van.
Favorite city?
London.
What's a rider you idolize? Who?
Lotte.
Okay, and the best ice cream flavor?
Goody gone, bros.
Okay, I think that's your time. So we got through 8. I really wanted to get to 9 though, because 9 was what's your favorite Disney film? What is your favorite Disney film? Out of curiosity.
Oh, I definitely want to be up to that one. So, yeah.
Nothing. My kids are obsessed with Frozen at the moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say Frozen, but I didn't really want to say Frozen.
I was doing a gravel ride on the weekend, and most people I feel like would have some cool soundtrack going through the back of their head, but all I had was For the First Time in Forever playing on a loop the whole way through. I feel like it drove me into madness, but anyway. Hey, so we'll get stuck into the actual interview. I think you're second last. You're not last on the quickfire questions. I think it might have even been your brother got 7. He got really hung up on a couple of them. So you might have beaten him in the sibling rivalry.
Maybe it's a family trait,
Maybe.
I think I thought too long about the snack.
I think, I wrote that with, apparently you guys have like chocolate marshmallow fish.
Yeah.
That was the one that I wrote it with. I wrote it with that in my head.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say something like that, but yeah.
I don't know what they're called. And the best dinosaur I didn't expect. I would have probably gone with Stegosaurus. But I think that's just me being really into dinosaurs. Hey, so first question, I watched a few of your interviews in the lead up to this, and the thing that struck me most is that you really have a bit of a hybrid accent going on there.
Really?
How would you describe your accent? I was listening, and some phrases seem to have like a tinge of Dutch in them. There's obviously like the Kiwi accent, but you spent a little bit of time in Europe. Do you reckon that's influenced it in any way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, since I became pro, I've spent way more time in Europe than I've spent in New Zealand. Actually, a few years, I just didn't go back to New Zealand at all. And I think especially at the same time, I was on a Dutch team. So that's for sure where the Flinglish comes from a little bit, the Flemish English. Because,
go.
I also haven't had native speakers speaking English in my team the last few years, so I've always been like over pronouncing my words. But now I have Spratty, so I can practice.
Yeah, Spratty would be the opposite, and she's probably having had a chat to Spratty, she's got a pretty thick Blue Mountains accent going.
Yeah.
What's the primary language that you guys are speaking? So I'm assuming Dutch was the SD Worx language. Is that what everyone's communicating in?
There was a lot of Dutch spoken, so I pretty much understand most Dutch now, but the official language was still English. But it's obviously English in a second language, so it's English with a funny tinge of Dutch to it. Like the sentences are always formed in the Dutch configuration, but in English words.
Yeah, well, I was sitting and watching some of the interviews with my wife actually, and we were sort of trying to pick. There were a few sentences that you said that seemed as if they were in that Dutch configuration, like the word, just the syntax in there. So yeah, just and what's the most speakers in the lidl-trek team? There seems to be a few Italians in that team.
Yeah, actually a lot of Italian and Spanish.
Yeah.
But there's definitely much more widely spoken English.
I've seen that you speak quite a few languages. How many languages do you speak?
Oh, I don't know if I speak a few. I speak a little bit of a few. I can speak a little bit of Italian and very, very little Spanish. Should be more, but yeah. And I understand a lot of Dutch.
It's way more than me. I got through a couple of lessons of Duolingo. I had a bit of a streak going in French, but then I tried to speak to someone. My brother speaks fluent French, and I tried to speak to him, and I realized I was just in no way equipped to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, so second question. You're 5'2", which is not a tall rider. I think that's fair to say. I don't think I'd be being offensive saying that.
No.
And I'd assume that your shoulders are pretty narrow. The UCI brings out this 40 centimeter, 400 millimeter handlebar thing, and you were pretty pissed off about it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I was. I saw it like it was a joke.
Yeah. Well, they've adjusted that, and I wanted to go over that with you. Have you had a chance to have a look at the adjustments that they've made?
Yes, I have.
So initially it was 400 millimeters at the widest point, but then they had the degree of angles. Now it's 400 millimeters at the widest point, but also 320 millimeters between the hoods. Surely that's a pretty crazy lever angle.
Yeah, it's actually I think they've made an exception now. Well, I don't know if it's just for smaller riders, but that the widest point can be 38. So my bars they do pass, but yeah, the levers, this rule that I will have to almost have them pointing outwards because they don't fall inside that. So
yeah, right. So you're gonna have sort of almost your wrists cocked out.
Yeah.
How do you feel? The whole point of this is supposed to be to make cycling safer. How does this go in any way to contributing to that? And if you had the UCI's ear for a day, what would be the things that you would say, hey, that's cool, but instead of that, maybe this?
Yeah, I think it's absurd to say that it makes it safer because also I've myself and I've spoken to a lot of girls, when you have so wide bars, you experience also a lot of symptoms of like not just discomfort, but like numbing hands and everything. And this is not possibly safe if your hands are getting numb. And also, if you have such a flare from your body. I mean, I can stick my elbows out all I want in a bunch, but my bars are going to be the first contact point. So, yeah, it's for sure not safer. And I don't know if I was with the UCI, I don't understand even how they could come to this conclusion. Like, it's almost like they just want to do something to make a point or something. But yeah, I would say for sure, then if they want to implement something like that, just bring in the same height rule like with the TT stuff. You're either category 1 or category 2. It's quite simple, but yeah, in terms of safety, I think they need to look at that again because it's not going to make it safer.
Yeah, it was the same sort of suggestion that Sarah Gigante had, which was you have classifications for other things. Yeah. Surely you could have classifications for the height of a rider means they can have X width. But clearly it's a bunch of people that have just never been in a bunch sprint because having wider handlebars is just going to mean you're going to lock handlebars with people.
Yeah, especially when I'm so much lower than everyone else. It's so quick to it's the first point of contact. But yeah, exactly. I don't think it's actually been seriously considered in any way. And I know there is other girls in the peloton with much narrower bars than I have. And yeah, it's just like you compare a rider like me and someone like Johnny Milan and then give us the same standards. It's not fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And both you and Jonathan Milan are going to be riding the most narrow that you possibly can, which means you will literally be on the same handlebar setup as someone like Jonathan Milan, which is it's bonkers. Hey, so I guess we'll move on. We don't want to get too caught on it, but I want to say first off, congratulations for your silver at Worlds. That was a fantastic ride, and just just some of the best watching of like a single day race that I've seen in a while.
Oh, that's good.
No idea who was going to win there, and you mentioned in an interview that you didn't feel like you were racing until the last lap. You sort of felt like it was pretty chill, and then the last lap it sort of kicked on. What's it like to suddenly in the last lap realize I'm actually a chance at being the world champion here? And then also in that same last lap, see Magdalene go up the road and realize that your chances were fading.
Mm.
How do you process that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty, well, I don't know. I found it a difficult race because, yeah, it was a lot of laps and maybe not so exciting start. So it's also a skill in cycling to stay focused on a goal. And so the whole race, I was sort of fighting in my head a bit, like stay focused. Especially, I think in a race like the World Championships, you have no communication or not really teammates, and also you have a lot of fatigue from the season, so the mental processes aren't working so well. But then at one point I was really like, oh, okay, this is getting a bit boring, so I started to try make some moves, and then suddenly I just looked behind and there was this group. I didn't think too much of it because I was like, oh, it's a nice position. The favorites can jump across to us, and then I don't have to. I'm in a good position. But then we saw the time gaps going out, and there was one moment where I turned to my trade teammate Rihanna Marcus, and I was like, and she just said to me, "This is the worst possible situation we could have," and I just smiled to myself, and I thought, ah, then I guess we go for the win. And so then it was a little bit of a flip in the head, and I thought, okay, now I have to really focus on who's around me and where I can sort of take advantage. And yeah, I saw that Max was probably the strongest rider because already I think 2 laps to go, it was just me and her at one point. And yeah, in my head, I was not so confident on the cobbles, and in the last races, we'd never really seen it split on the cobbles. So I focused on the climb before, but still Max could stay with me, and then I put my head to the sprint, but I didn't even, to be honest, when she made this move, really on the bottom of the cobble climb, she could just get out of the saddle and float across the cobbles, and I felt like it was not really like cobbles. Maybe they look easier to ride than it actually is, but I couldn't. I was bouncing so much I couldn't get out of the saddle or something. And I was really like, okay, just sit down, try put the power down, and try come back. But I never saw her again.
Yeah, they were saying that they were pretty like relatively tame cobbles, but I guess you're a pretty light rider, and that would be bouncing
I wouldn't
you
have
around
said they
quite
were
a bit.
tame.
No.
Yeah.
What's the I guess maybe tame, maybe they're comparing them to sort of Paris-Roubaix kind of cobbles.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
what's it like as someone who is, I mean, you've had some success with classics, but maybe not the cobbled classics. What's it like trying to, I guess, get your back wheel to grip while you're climbing? It's often a hard, on some of those steeper climbs, often hard to get that pressure down on that back wheel as it is. What's it like trying to do that while you're going up a cobbled climb?
Yeah, it's difficult actually. Well, for me, I really focus on like the seated power. But yeah, some people can get out of the saddle and keep the weight on the back wheel. And I think that's also a skill. It's probably something I need to work on. But especially when it's this steep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's for sure a skill riding cobbles. You have to somehow get the power out well keeping control and keeping not too much pressure on the bars and stuff. So yeah, but Max was just really stronger there than me.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you had to sort of keep focused. What do you mean by that? I guess not many people watching this will have done an 160-kilometer road race, let alone a road race in a world championships where it's a circuit of like 13 kilometers, I think it was. So that's a lot of laps. What do you mean by staying focused? What's that process? What do you need to be doing there?
Yeah, I mean, you're in a big bunch, and it means like focusing on like your position and being in the right position at the right time, at the right moments. And like, yeah, it's sort of just I mean, it's a really stimulatory experience, I think, I guess, being in a big bunch like that, going so fast and lap after lap, and you just have to keep really switched on. Yeah, especially if you want to be in the best position to win the bike race and save as much energy as possible, be on the right moves. It's for sure it's part of the sport.
Does the fact that it's a world championships and you have riders that maybe might not normally ride in the World Tour peloton, does that make it even more difficult to focus on that, or were those riders mostly gone by that point in the race?
Yeah, in the first parts of the race, it's difficult because you're used to riding the whole year in one sort of peloton, in the World Tour peloton, and there is a way that it sort of works or gels in certain hierarchies, I guess, that you just understand, and also with teams, you have teammates to follow it, etc. And so the World Championships is always far more difficult and also nerve-wracking in the first parts, because there is a lot of these people that will fight for their chance, and you're not really used to riding around them. They're not used to riding around you, so there's more pressure on sort of being further up in the peloton and staying safe, etc.
Yeah, totally. So I think the world sort of learnt, or a lot of the world learnt about Magdalene Vallieres on that day. How much racing you done with Mags in the past? And did you, like you said, you turned around and you identified her as strongest rider? Is that from previous racing experience? Did you have a pretty, like, was she someone you were watching coming into the race, or was that a surprise to you too?
No, her performance, I think, on the day, it did surprise me. I think she had really the race of her life. But it does annoy me that a lot of people say to me now, like, it's the first I heard of her, because I do think that she's been performing incredibly well. Also, all this year, I remember racing in like around the top 10 for her, with her, and Ardennes Classics, etc. So she is a good rider, and I knew she was always a good rider. She's always in good moves, and I've been in a lot of breakaways with her, also on the tour. So, like, yeah, I mean, I knew she was strong. Yeah, okay, maybe she hasn't had that big win, but she's always been thereabouts and always been there. So I honestly saw it was possible from her.
Yeah, I think it's like fair criticism to be annoyed. I will sort of say I didn't really know her name, and I think that just suggests that maybe we are too focused on sort of the top three in women's cycling races, and there's just a lack of understanding of the depth in women's cycling at the moment. And I'm happy to put myself, like, my hand up and say, yeah, I totally need to work on that too. We'll come back to that because I want to ask you a little bit later about sort of the women's. Actually, I've got it right here. So first up, do you think that the course would have been improved if your race featured Mont Kigali like the men's race did?
Yeah, I did ride Mont Kigali, and it was very hard. I think, I don't know, some would say it could have been improved, but I think the race was already the hardest world championship we've ever had in terms of parkour. And I think they would have made it also even maybe too hard. I think some criticized the men's race that it was too hard. So for us, maybe it was another level. But of course, I would have loved to have that climb in there. And I also wonder if it would have made the race more interesting, because there was a lot of looking at each other on the laps. And if there was an obstacle like that so early in the race, then maybe it would have been, maybe less playing games.
Yeah, especially there was a lot of criticism sort of between the Dutch. I think the Dutch, French, and Italian teams, they were playing a lot of silly buggers and sort of looking at each other. And potentially having something that was such an obvious moment. You know, everyone saw that for the men's race and said, that's where Pogačar is going. That's where the race is going to open up. And it's a question of whether people can keep him. There wasn't really a point like that, I guess, in the women's race. So, yeah, was it everyone coming in with like different tactics, or was everyone just sort of, why do you think it was that, you know, those teams never really made that selection?
I even don't think it was so much tactics. I think even the Dutch came out and said they rode really well as a team. They just didn't have the legs, or they messed it up a bit. I mean, the thing is, it's normal to let a group go like this and then jump to it from behind. But yeah, I think they tried, but they just couldn't. Or maybe the control was not enough, that the gap was out too much. I know that Italy and France, they maybe messed up a bit. I saw early in the race they used a lot of their riders to close moves that were maybe not necessary, and I think they were left without the numbers in the final. But that's always the interesting thing about the world champs, because it's riding with people that you're not used to having as your teammates, and also without communication, without radios. So yeah, you probably need a really good race leader on the road, and you have to be able to read a race really well. So it can easily go wrong, but yeah.
There's a lot of talk about that, and I think for the average punter that doesn't have a race radio ever, can you talk to sort of the difference? Like, why is it such a big factor, racing with race radios versus racing without it? Is it the communication with the teammates, the communication with the team car?
Yeah, I mean, I think still when we race with race radios, you rely a lot on a race leader in the race and tactics and making choices yourself, because the team car is not seeing stuff immediately. But the thing that they can do is give information on how many is in the break, what the gap is, and who is in the break. So maybe those teams didn't know exactly the depth of the riders that were in the break if they didn't see it go. They didn't know that people like I or Max were there. So yeah, and also when you have instruction in your ear from a team car to do a job or something, I think people tend to act a lot quicker and just do it. You know, sometimes there is when it's coming from your own mind, there is maybe a moment of hesitation or something.
Yeah, right. Hey, so a lot of people question sort of the length of women's races. I put up a post sort of suggesting that women's race is a really good product, and a lot of the criticism was, you know, they race a lot shorter. I've heard a bunch of different reasons. Do you know why the UCI race organisers chose not to include Mont Kigali? And can you talk to why you believe women's races are shorter than men's? Like, do they need to be that length? What are the reasonings behind that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can speak to that. I guess women's cycling, it's I want to say it still does not quite have the depth of men's cycling, but in the end, I think it's almost a better depth, because in men's cycling Pogacar is just
Yeah.
on another level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's that, and I guess it's culturally we're not, and we're not traditionally expected to be able to do as much. We never race as long as them.
Mm.
But I do wonder if that gap will sort of close in the coming years. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly why they didn't, but it would have been cool, yeah.
I don't feel like they should be racing to have 270-kilometer women's races. I think 270 kilometers is far too many kilometers to have.
No, I also
in a
agree
race.
with that. Yeah.
But
I
hey,
also agree with that.
as a follow-up, the other thing is women's GTs. I think the longest one at the moment is the Tour de France, which runs for 9 stages over 8 days from memory this year's Tour de France. Do they need to be longer?
Yeah, I see an opportunity that they can be longer. But I think they have, I think it will become longer. As I say, as the depth of the peloton grows and the number of like high performing teams gets bigger, then I think for sure that these races will get longer. Because I think if I look 2 or 3 years ago, even there was probably a much bigger disparity between the top riders who could, yeah, for sure perform for 2 weeks, but there at the other end there was also riders racing that I don't believe could have, and also the professionalism and support from the World Tour teams was maybe not as much. But it's coming up every year, and I think it's very possible that we could race longer days.
So the last thing I want to sort of push you on here is there has not been a single individual time trial in a women's Grand Tour this year. From, I think every single one's had a team time trial. So 2 questions: should they feature individual time trials? And the second one is, does the presence of these team time trials punish teams that have less depth?
I mean, yes, okay, they should feature maybe a bit more individual time trials, but I will not personally vouch for them because I'm not a big fan of them. But but and about the depth and the team time trials, yeah, maybe it does. But also I would argue that an individual time trial requires just as much depth from the team. I mean, half of it's equipment and aero and being aero and stuff, so this requires just as much, if not more, than a team time trial. And I think it is definitely part of the sport, individual time trials, but it's a very niche part of the sport, so I can understand why they tend to leave it out. But yeah, for sure, some points it should be in.
It's just interesting because there are almost no team trials in men's cycling, and then every women's Grand Tour this year, from memory off the top of my head, has featured a team time trial. And it's just a bizarre sort of inverse where some of the men's Grand Tours are featuring 2 individual time trials, but no team time trials. I think the Vuelta was the only one to do a team time trial this year, which I'm all about. I love a good team time trial, but it just sticks out as something that is bizarre that women only have team time trials and the men only have individual time trials.
Yeah, I think actually we only had a team time trial in the Vuelta. But
okay.
Yeah, maybe it's also to do with like the women's races are a little bit less organization or something, and a team time trial is more efficient or something. But yeah, I'm not sure because I can imagine also time trials are a huge organization nightmare.
I would imagine. Hey, so you sort of said that there was a bit of a culture shock going to Rwanda, and I think you described being there as having a little bit of like a lack of control. What did you mean by a lack of control?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult one to explain because, well, especially for myself, I think I'm sure other riders also experience it, but it's even not just going to Rwanda. Every year I go to the Worlds, I feel a little bit sometimes overwhelmed because you are the whole year used to one system with a trade team, and then I go and work with Cycling New Zealand, which is maybe, and no offense against them, but a little bit less organized or supported nation for road cycling. So I always and you go to really these high pressure, high stake events, and it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. And yeah, for sure, Rwanda also was like, it was a really, really cool place. But you get there and you have to sort of think about everything, you know, like putting on your mosquito repellent all the time, and then and being careful what you eat and not drinking the water. And then also you walk out on the streets and you really stick out like a sore thumb. It was like both a really cool and different experience, but also maybe it made the whole preparation, like days before the race with nerves and everything, like that little bit extra, because you were like, there's a lot of things to think about, you know. But
Yeah, totally.
yeah, very different experience, but yeah, it was for sure and a cool one.
So I went and did some MC work at a Chinese race, and at the end of each stage, I was just getting past babies to take photos with me. It was a really bizarre experience. I felt a bit like Taylor Swift, to be honest, and I had to ask my Chinese translator, can you tell them that I'm nobody? Like, I'm not someone special. I'm not a rider. Can you convey that to them? They did not care. Did you get that in Africa? Was it a lot of selfies and...
Yeah, maybe not babies, but
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. The African people, the Rwandan people were like super. Like, I arrived in my hotel and all the hotel staff wanted to come and greet me, you know, and say welcome, hello, like, and like just they were super into it, you know. They always also like wanted, especially like people in Europe always want your bottles and stuff, but these people really wanted like this stuff. I would sometimes be training on the roads and these kids would be sprinting up beside me. Well, where they're quite fast as well, and trying to grab like bottles or bars from my pockets while I'm riding.
Wow.
Which was a little bit scary sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, for sure they were so into it. But I don't know if they were so into it because they were into cycling, but just because it was just such a different and huge thing to come to their home country.
Yeah. So I know a few of the riders were talking about the fact that they felt like they kind of had to watch their tongue in regards to what they said while they were in Rwanda. Do you feel that at all? And how did the experience of racing in Rwanda compare to racing in a country like Europe or Australia where you come to do some races?
I don't know if I felt like, yeah, there was obviously some things that you should like maybe avoid to say or something. But I did not feel so much like I had to watch what I said. I think that was okay. And racing there, yeah, I mean, in the end, for sure, it was something completely incomparable to Australia or Europe. But that's the thing. I think when you do such a big and high stake race, you just kind of have to pretend that it is the same, you know. But yeah, it was, yeah, for sure different.
Africa's on the bucket list though for me. How do you like? It must be a cool experience to be sort of flown to a different country to get to experience something like that instead of another worlds in another white country. Must have been pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it was for sure a cool experience. I think I doubted a lot to go there, just because, yeah, it's not. It's, yeah, as I said, it's never the easiest experience for a nation, and it's also self-funded. So I really considered it a lot. But then in the end, I just thought, yeah, how often do you get a chance to go to Africa? So why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Hey, so you are moving on from Worlds to, well, actually, kind of still with the Worlds. When you won the under 23 World Championships, and I've got you saying that you weren't even aware that you'd actually won the under 23 because you were racing concurrently with the elites at that time. You've expressed frustration in the past over a lack of U23 development squads in women's cycling. Sentiment shared by many, including the Belgian national coach Christel Heremans, who said there needs to be more investment in U23 right now. Right now, juniors are riding races of 60 to 70 kilometres, and then at 18, they're expected to compete against riders like Vos, Lecourt, and Vollering. I think it's actually a bit unfair that she didn't put you in there as well as Fisher-Black. That's just not realistic. So how do you think your path would have been different had you started in a dedicated under 23 circuit as opposed to jumping straight into, well, essentially SD Worx?
Yeah, I think that is one point. I think physically the demand from junior to elite is huge. And it definitely took me some years to adapt to that. But it's also, I think I at one point argued why we have a race of U23 inside a race of elite, because I don't believe that's truly a race, because cycling is not actually always about the strongest wins. There is a lot behind it, tactics and understanding a bike race and knowing how to win. And that is fully part of the sport. And I think that was forgotten when a race was inside a race. And I think that the importance of the U23 category is mostly this, like learning how to win a bike race, to be bold enough to make the moves, or patient enough to wait to the end. That is a skill in itself. And I think if I could criticize myself, maybe that's what I miss from going straight to a World Tour team, because straight away I just had to focus on doing my job for my leaders, and I always knew that they could finish it off. I never had the pressure to really finish a bike race off, or like go for it myself in a race winning position. Well, sometimes I did actually on SD Worx, because I had a lot of opportunity there actually, but yeah, I think some other young girls end up in these situations where they become very good at riding their bike and being very strong and doing great things for their leaders, but when it comes to a position where they actually have to finish it off, they just don't know how. And I think that's the importance of the U23 category, to be honest.
And that's something that you've talked about in regards to Trek. I think during the Tour de France, you were saying you're still learning a lot about being a team leader. How is that journey going for you? How you, after this year, you're closing the book on your first year as a team leader. You were the out and out leader for Trek in quite a few races this year. How do you feel coming out of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually pretty well. I think in the beginning of the year, I expected maybe it would happen a lot faster. That transition to being able to perform as the lead, or go for the finals. But it is a lot harder than you think. I think, and you carry also the weight of a team a lot of the time. Like I see all my teammates helping me and working for me, and that's a lot of pressure. And you also need to learn to I guess be that good leader, that makes them want to do that, and lift them up and tell them what you need. And that also takes confidence as well, I think, and that's sort of been things I've needed to work on this year. But I'm actually really happy with how every race it seems to have gotten like better, and it's really felt like I've gone up and up and up, even finishing the season strong. So yeah, I'm actually really happy with how it's gone. I know there's a few more things I would change and a few more steps to make for next year, but I think it's been a really great first season with lidl-trek.
Yeah. And let's go on to your results then. So your year has been pretty good. You're 8th in Strade Bianche, 9th in Flèche Wallonne, 7th in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, 6th in the Vuelta a España overall, 4th in the Tour de Suisse overall, 5th in the Tour de France overall, and then 2nd in the World Championships and the Giro d'Emilia. There are no wins though, and does this leave you satisfied, hungry, or frustrated?
Yeah, for sure. There is personally a little bit of like, yeah, hunger and frustration that I didn't quite get that win. And but I think it's more like people around me always try to put it in perspective and stuff, but the reality is we're all competitive athletes, and I think there's always going to be some little thing saying we're not going to stop until we get that top step, So it's for sure brings also though a lot of motivation, and it's not like I'm getting my head down or something from all these like almost there results, but I'm just sort of letting it feed into the upward trajectory.
Yeah. So with this though, you've definitely shown that you have the legs to perform in both classics and stage races. Just going over those results, you've done about the same or equally well in both. What sort of rider do you see yourself developing into? Are you leaning more towards, I know you've said that you really like the idea of these longer stage races. Is it a bit of a Por qué no los dos sort of situation? Or do you feel like you really want to go in a direction?
I think that's, to be honest, it's a choice I need to make, maybe even like year by year. Like if I would, I mean, I would really like to target a grand tour, and maybe I would sacrifice a little bit how I would perform in the classics. I think that's normal. So yeah, maybe there's maybe next year I make my target in the grand tours, and I work on things like my ability to long climbs and things like that. That's yeah, I think I still have to discuss with the coaches my plans. It's yeah, for sure in my head, in the back of my mind, that those are the kind of things I think about.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's talk the Tour de France then. The races aren't really going your way. You're getting some relatively good results, but definitely not the ones you would have wanted coming into stage 8. What is the talk coming into that stage? Is the team sort of downcast? Are you guys feeling pretty good in 8th position? I mean, with hindsight, you pull off a 5th. And you were very, the Col de Madeleine, you did quite well on that stage, but what's the talk sort of before that stage?
Yeah, we had not really the best start of the week as a team. We we had some crashes with our sprinter Balsamo, and then eventually she crashed out of the race completely. And then the next day I had a mechanical at the worst moment, and I lost a few minutes. So we really felt like the cards were just against us. But I think I think we did really well as a team to just sort of like, okay, turn it around. It's only us that can turn around the bad luck or whatever it is. And that's why straight away from the beginning of stage 8, we sort of attacked the race, because I had nothing to lose. I had lost a lot of time on GC, and I thought this stage anyway suits me, so why not try from the gun? And I had a teammate there, and it was just like perfect scenario. And I think it was really telling, and it was really one of the coolest things to see how my teammates sort of just kept their heads up, and we turned it around and made the best out of the week we could.
You spoke about sort of becoming a leader. This is your second Tour de France, but your first riding as a GC leader. How did you find you evolved across the Tour de France? Are you feeling like you're starting to get the hang of being that person that the team rallies around, or is that still very foreign to you?
I don't know. I don't know if maybe Demi Vollering, but I don't know if they will ever feel comfortable. You know, it's really actually something pretty hard to every day go in switched on, and there are so much variables in bike racing. Like, yeah, you can get mechanicals, you can crash, like stuff can happen, and that's nerve wracking, and it's an uneasy place to be, I think, for 8 days, but it's also like it's quite cool and testing and thrilling. So yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get used to it, but it's not that I don't enjoy it and think it's really cool. And I think with a good team, it can be really easy actually. I mean, I have my teammates rallying around me every day, and I also like to see their successes. So if you can have success along the way with a sprinter as well, it's usually motivating. So yeah.
Yeah. No, good stuff. So in that Tour de France, the teams, particularly SD Worx, your old team, and Visma, they got a little bit heated. Do you think that this is par for the course as the women's peloton becomes more high stakes? Is this what we're going to see? Or do you think that was just poor form from those teams? And I'm going to say from particularly Visma at that race, stepping out of line.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was a little bit poor form, but to be honest, I think it was between Visma and FTJ actually, but
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yes.
if if I see also what the FTJ was saying, I think sometimes it was a bit laughable, but I think for sure, I mean, you see it on the men's side. Media will take any snippets they can of drama, you know. So it's normal as the profile of the sport goes up. It's entertainment at the end of the day. So people. I mean, it's not all like sunshine and rainbows in the peloton in between teams. I mean, we're all competitive, so there will always be that factor, I think.
No, you are 100% correct. It was FDJ. In my head, Demi Vollering still hadn't transferred from SD
Yeah, it's the same
FDJ.
Lars Boom
So, yes.
and Demi Vollering. Same team also.
No, you're correct. Just we might close on SD Worx. So you pretty much straight out of the gate, you land what most people would see as a pretty plum job with SD Worx. Why did you leave? What was it that made you want to move to a team like Trek?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I toyed with that a lot, that question, and doubted it a lot actually also last year. I was 4 years with SD Worx, and I joined them as a very young rider, so they pretty much became like my family, especially because I was pretty much full time in Europe those years. Yeah, I think in the end, what encouraged my decision to leave was, I think we saw maybe quite a shift in the team in the last year. I mean, we saw a lot of riders leave, and it meant a little bit of change in dynamics, and I guess there was some things that, like, I wouldn't say it was ever the drama that the media made it out to be, but maybe some feelings changed and things like that. And I an opportunity came up with Trek, and I tried to imagine myself somewhere else, and there was a moment where I could imagine myself somewhere else. So I thought, yeah, I'm a young rider, and I hope I have many years left in my career, and maybe I will regret if I never try something different. So I thought maybe this is the opportunity. SD Worx was a great team, so I was obviously I was really actually sad to leave them, but I since this year I haven't regretted my decision. I think that lidl-trek is also a really, really great team.
So I think the point where you're talking about the media hyping things up a bit more than they were was around that 2024 Tour de France, where the media narrative was that the SD Worx team is eating itself alive. What was
Yeah.
it like on the inside? What was actually going on during that 2024 Tour de France? Was there a where there's smoke, there's fire sort of situation, or was this just completely a red herring?
I mean, I think it was blown way out of proportion. There was not. I mean, we spent the whole sort of 10 days or whatever together, and there was never a problem. I mean, we didn't have any internal ongoings in the team or anything. Like we all did everything that we could actually to make sure Demi could win that Tour de France, and I knew also for myself I was there solely for that reason, to help her, and I hated the fact that the media came out and told me that I was a bad teammate and everything, and told my other teammates that they were bad teammates, and I hated that. It was an honest mistake that we didn't see her for a long time in that crash, and we didn't know the situation. And I was also in the crash, so I was behind it all. I also couldn't help. But yeah, it's funny how people like to put on a story that's maybe not so much the story, the real story.
With Demi, she copped a lot of flack in that Tour de France. And then this Tour de France, she's moved to FDJ and has again copped a lot of flack. Why do you think there is this desire in the media to cut her down? Is it a tall poppy syndrome sort of situation? Is it the fact that she is a dominant female rider? What is it about Demi Vollering that seems to put a target on her, whether fairly or not?
Yeah, I don't. It's true what you say. She does have a lot of target on her, I think. But I do think there is a sense of that, and I think of tall poppy syndrome. I think there is a sense of it in all sport. Actually, it's a little bit default nature of some humans, I think, and I think the competitive nature. I think we even see it in the men with Poggy and Remco. People always like to point out things that maybe they do wrong or something. I don't know, but Demi is an incredibly talented athlete, and she's won a lot of really great races. So it's normal that she receives a lot of criticism, I think, and she's also got one of the biggest following of all women and in the media. So I having known her as a teammate and being friends with her, I know she takes a lot of pressure from that, and also I think she has her own struggles, like dealing with it all. But yeah, I think it speaks to her as a person because she deals with a lot.
I find it interesting. I like just genuinely I don't speak Dutch, so I don't know what she says in the Dutch press, but from what I can see, she has not said anything. Like normally people that attract this much criticism have come out and said something stupid or something arrogant or something along those lines. And I don't feel like Demi has ever done that, but yet she seems to be treated as if she has. It's a bizarre thing. And I personally wonder how much of it has to do with sexism and the fact that she is a successful and confident woman in a sport.
Yeah, that's maybe something also to do with it because she's also very open in her media, so there's probably it opens her up to more criticism. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so one thing before we go, I'd like to sort of put to you at the end of each of these, we sort of have a chat about what advice you would give to a young cyclist looking to crack it in the tour. However, yesterday I had a pretty big phone conversation with some people that are running a team over in Europe, and one of their frustrations is how much it costs to, as a young rider, get into the world tour and the amount of money that you have to put up. What would you like? what was your experience in regards to trying to break into the World Tour in regards to the financial element, and what would you advise someone to look out for when they're looking at a team or potentially going over to Europe? What sort of advice would you give in that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it completely makes sense because I understand completely. I know when I was really first trying to go pro, I did everything. I did everything on a whim, like doing things as little cost as possible, like trying to do as many races as I could as well. Uh, in Belgium and the UK, I did, but I would do all my own mechanics and I would get trains everywhere with just a backpack and things like that. Like, I think it's difficult nowadays because people can so openly see what we're doing at the highest level, like doing all the 1% parts, and people think, I mean, young girls coming into the sport think you need the 1%, like you need to do the altitude camps or you need all the special equipment or this or that. But I think it's too easily overlooked that is even less than 1% of the performance. I mean, 99% of it is the work you put in and turning up on the day and racing and showing yourself. And I think that's mostly what teams look for, because if they see room that they can improve you, then for sure they will sign you. Like, but if you're doing everything already, as a junior, as a young 23, then there's not so many places you can improve now. So yes, it is super expensive, but just try do everything you can do, and put yourself in the right positions, talk to the right people, and it's difficult, I can say firsthand, but there is certainly a way.
Was there, other than, Finn came out pretty soon after, was there a rider who you feel took you under their wing in those early days that you'd sort of like to give a shout out and a thank you to, or a manager? Or
yeah, I mean the first team that I actually joined, Bigler, there was some really great people there. I mean, I had a Kiwi teammate there, Michaela Harvey, and also her dad, Patrick Harvey, helped me huge amounts. They helped me. He helped me race as a club team, and he's still taking a small UCI team over to Europe every year.
Wow.
And that's the ticket that I had into European racing. So for sure them, and also my first pro team, the manager there, Thomas Campani, he took a lot of stick for accusations and things, but in the end he gave me the ticket to pro cycling, so I have to thank him.
Well, Niamh, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, and that's a wrap. So your season's done. Can we expect to see you at the Tour Down Under 2026?
Yeah, maybe. I'm yet to confirm it, but I last week I already had Spraddy in my ear every day, like, you're coming. So
Yep.
sounds like I'm maybe going, yeah.
Well, if you're there, I'll be down there, and I'll be an absolute pest on the sidelines telling everyone
Cool.
that I've spoken to you. So enjoy your off season, and thanks very much. It's Niamh, spelt Niamh Fisher-Black, Niamh Fisher-Black on Instagram, and following lidl-trek as well. Thanks heaps.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking to Niamh. I really appreciated her candor, and I found her just to be a really open and honest person. So, yeah, I can't wait to see how she goes next year. I think she's definitely one to watch in 2026, and I will definitely be an absolute pest on the side of the road if she's at the Santos Tour Down Under. Thanks, everyone. Bye.